a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Thursday, the 12th of March, year of our Lord, 2026. Well, today we're going to take a look at the astounding vanity and stupidity of the Trump regime. Yeah, Trump family values and how it extends to the cabinet that he has there, the sycophancy, the boasting, the vanity. I'm going to ban all photographers because I don't like the way you made me look. This is what these guys are concerned with as the world is suffering from constipation at the Strait of Hormuz. We have entire world trade is being cut off by these lunatics who didn't have a clue, the gang who could not shoot straight. Tony's going to be joining us today. And we're going to talk about what's going on with gold as well as what it looks like for the dollar. It appears that the Iranians have a plan to last a long time, but they don't really need to last any longer than the U.S. bond market can last. And that's looking like that's not going to go that well. We'll be right back. Well, let's take a look at the news first before we get into Iran. We've got James Comer saying that the Trump Department of Justice asked the New Mexico officials to end the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. As I reported the other day, they shut it down at the Zorro Ranch, and that happened during the Trump administration, right after Jeffrey Epstein was either killed or escaped. They shut down the investigation. State investigation said, we'll handle it from here. And now, as the state of New Mexico sees some of the statements in these partially released documents about Epstein, they want to have an investigation, a state investigation. So now the FBI is, we'll help you with that. Be careful. Keep your eyes on these FBI guys. They may be stuffing papers into their pants like Sandy Burglar. Remember that guy? The guy who was there with the Clintons, and he goes to the National Archives. And they've set up special rules just because of what Sandy Burglar did. We called him Sandy Burglar. He was left alone with a lot of these papers that were supposed to not leave the place. And he stuffed a bunch of them in his pants, and they caught him outside. He's destroying these documents. Yeah, watch out for your FBI partners in this investigation of the Epstein Ranch. And the guy who's talking about this, of course, is the Republican who is running the Epstein probe that is happening there. I guess you put that in air quotes, a probe. The federal government asked New Mexico to stop their investigation, said Comer, I believe back in 2019 of that ranch. So many questions about how the government failed, he said. I mean, this whole thing doesn't make sense, says James Comer, head of the House Oversight Committee. He said everyone has conspiracy theories on how Epstein was able to get away with it. Was it because he had powerful friends? Was it because he was an agent? We don't know, but we're going to find out. I'm glad they're on the ground now in New Mexico searching the property. Again, watch out for the FBI. Meanwhile, when we look at what is happening with the Iran war, Iran is getting more defiant in the face of the U.S.-Israeli onslaught. There's very different pictures that are emerging here. And, how do you tell what is true? We have not only the fog of war, but we have the censorship of Israel. And we have the lies of the Trump administration. They don't even try to make it plausible. I got to give it to Satan Yahoo. At least Bibi will make things look plausible, unless he's talking about Iran's nuclear war stuff. He puts up his Warner Brothers Acme bomb picture and tells us that they're a week away, and he's done that for 30 some odd years. But he does it in a very convincing manner. Not so much with Trump. His stuff is prima facie absurd. But in Iran, the foreign minister has further said that a unilateral declaration from Trump that the U.S. had won the war and would soon be over because they don't have anything left to bomb, he said. Well, that's not going to end the conflict. The implication is that even if the U.S. announced a willingness to end its attacks, Iran might be willing to continue the conflict in some form. What form would that take? Choking off trade at the Strait of Hormuz? And it's not simple enough to put a bunch of boots on the ground and protect the Strait of Hormuz or something like that, turn it into a Gibraltar type of occupation. No, that won't even do it. Because all of these production facilities for liquid natural gas, the oil refineries, the oil fields themselves, the ports, those are all vulnerable targets. And you can shut those things down as well. You can shut down the source of the oil, not just the transit of the oil. And so they said they're going to keep their chokehold on shipping, seeking to navigate the Strait of Hormuz. Iran believes that there can be no end to this conflict until it believes that Trump has been shown the economic, political, and military cost is so high that it will not be worth repeating it. It is instead insisting on a permanent deal that includes a U.S. commitment not to attack Iran again. Can you trust Trump after the treachery that he has shown in these negotiations? The key issue is that they're going to do this, folks, for the long term until people feel enough pain. You hear all this stuff, no pain, no gain, right? All the time. The soundbite that we have of that, and which is not firing today. Anyway, the short-term pain for long-term gain. Well, they want a short-term war for long-term gain. That's what they really want. They're not going to get that. Instead, the way you hold Trump's feet to the fire is not by getting an assurance from him or his signature on a piece of paper. He has sworn to uphold the Constitution. How's that working out for us? It reminds me of Russell Means' book, Where White Men Fear to Tread. And he said, as an Indian, he said, the U.S. government has broken every treaty they ever made with us. He said, the treaty they made with you, white man, is the Constitution. And they've broken every aspect of that as well. So what would make the Iranians think that Trump's signature would be worth anything on a piece of paper? Or his verbal assurance is even less? No, the reality is that they've got to make this as painful for the people of the West that they won't elect leaders like Trump again. He has to destroy Trump politically. That would be a good thing, I think, for us if he destroys Trump politically. It's going to be very painful, but that would be the outcome. It is a ceasefire to be established, or as the war stopped, there must be a guarantee that aggressive actions against Iran will not be repeated. Otherwise, if another attack occurs in a few months, a ceasefire is meaningless. They've already seen this. They had the bomb strikes, and so we took out all their nuclear facilities. We're done. And then just in a few months, you get this even bigger attack. The defiance is remarkable for a regime that at the start of the war, 11 days ago, was seeking little more than its own survival. But the overall mood among Iranian regime figures is that it's going to be, it needs to survive. They're in an existential war and should not at this stage seek any agreement. It's not really surprising when you stop and think about it. The civilian populations, but especially the regime as well, once they are attacked in an act of aggression, and once you start doing civilian bombings, that hardens people's attitude. And even if they don't win, they're going to die trying. They are a lot more committed to this than anybody in the Trump administration. The UN Security Council on yesterday, more than 80 nations would sponsor a Bahrain-sponsored resolution condemning Iran for its attacks on the Gulf states, but voicing no criticism of the U.S. or Israel. Think about that. We were the aggressors, but we get no criticism whatsoever. And there's no statement about the bombing of civilians and young girls. We are absolutely not seeking a ceasefire, said the Speaker of the Parliament. Let the enemy know that whatever they do, there will certainly be proportionate, whatever we do will be proportionate and immediate retaliation. And so they said at the beginning of the war, we announced, and we announce again, no vessel associated with aggressors against Iran has the right to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. If you have doubts, come closer and find out. He's also said it will allow ships through countries that expel their U.S. and Israeli ambassadors. And we had 2 U.S. tankers hit yesterday. I think both, well, at least one of them was U.S. I don't know how they were flagged, but this is pictures of the, when you hit an oil tanker, you get spectacular fires, just like when you hit an oil refinery. And so that is, that was not in the Strait, as a matter of fact. That was close to Iraq. So Iran is planning an attack on California, warns the FBI. So they're planning, we've got a drone attack, we're told. They're going to put a drone attack on some tankers and unleash drones on California. Do you believe that? I think there will be a false flag attack somewhere by our government. And the same people that told us that men in caves were flying planes into buildings and they just fell down right away. Right? You're going to trust the people that did everything they could to cover up the JFK assassination, 9/11, that gave us the lies about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Are you going to trust those people? Now they have found they put out a memo saying we know they're going to, they got like a tanker aircraft carrier for drones that they're going to release these things on. Quite frankly, I think we all ought to be very concerned about what our own government will do. That's the reality. It's not known how Iran could carry out such an attack. It's pretty far from home. As a matter of fact, as I was watching some of the interviews, and in one interview, you had, I think it was CBS or something, was asking this Iranian official over and over again, so are you planning on attacking the U.S.? And he says, we don't need to go there. We've got plenty of U.S. targets right here. As a matter of fact, the old meme where they said, look at those Iranians, look at how aggressive they are. They put their country right in the middle of all of our military bases. They got many ways that they could do this. And quite frankly, if they wanted to do an attack, putting a ship out there with drones would not be the way to do it. Coming across the border and attacking infrastructure or oil refineries or something like that, that would be more like a pattern of behavior that they would really do. If they come after something for a lot of civilian casualties, I would guess, my first instinct would be, it's our own government trying to build support for a war that they've gone to war. This is even after we've become the empire that's policing the world, we've never had a situation where there was so little support for a war when it started. And it hasn't gone that well, despite all the bravado and lies. So Trump says we won, but we don't want to leave early. He said yesterday, we won the Iran war, but said the United States will stay with the fight to finish the job. Yeah, right. He's like trying to lay some expectations to get out of there. He said, you never like to say too early that you won. Well, we won. In the first hour, it was over. That's right. Mission accomplished. Just like George W. Bush on the aircraft carrier in Iraq, right? Claiming that 58 ships had been knocked out during the operation. Well, put that in context. Tell us how many mine-laying ships they have, and how many naval ships. And is the Navy really an important part of their strategy? I don't think so. It's widely reported, and I talked about it yesterday, the fact that after they saw Saddam Hussein's military just crumble with the onslaught of the U.S. military attacking them, they thought, we were had pretty much parity with them, right? They had a very long war between Iran and Iraq. Initially, it was going in Iran's favor, but then the U.S. helped Saddam Hussein because they hated Iran even more. And so they looked at that and said, well, we're going to have a different strategy. Their strategy was to decentralize, to have multiple layers of independent, they called it a mosaic, having all these independent cells that can operate independent of a decapitation strike. And you had evidently in the Pentagon planners, there was no awareness of that whatsoever, even though they had talked about it publicly. So they thought they had it won. with a decapitation strike, except they've been working for that for a very long time.
It was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
People like that, folks, are cowards, fundamentally. And I just got to say, when I look at Pete Hegseth, don't call him a Christian nationalist. Call him a nationalist if you have to. Don't call him a Christian nationalist. There is nothing Christian about these actions.
I stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy.
So there's nothing Christian about that. The Christian values gave us the just war theory. You don't revel in how many people you can kill, especially in civilians.
The results have been incredible. Historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this. Only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries.
Islamist adversaries. This is the Ninth Crusade.
The difference with this crusade is that they're not trying to liberate Jerusalem from the Muslims. What they're trying to do is liberate the entire Middle East for Israel.
And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace.
Hegseth has vowed to unleash, quote, overwhelming and punishing violence on enemies and promised to dispense with stupid rules of engagement, quote unquote, is what he calls it.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to. Our commanders factor all of this, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live. We will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. Death and destruction from the sky all day long.
Yeah, that's the Secretary of War Crimes. That really should be the new name of the department. They might change it from Department of Defense. It should be the Department of War Crimes. That's where we are right now. The pride, the hubris of this. God hates a prideful and haughty spirit. We should hate it as well. Some people put their trust in chariots and horses, F-35s, Patriot missiles. A Christian puts his trust in God. That's why I say he shows no evidence of being a Christian whatsoever. And so it was so important for the Department of War Crimes to have domestic surveillance that the vindictive wrath of this egotist, Pete Hegseth, is now being directed towards Anthropic. And think about this. They're telling us that Anthropic presents an unacceptable supply chain risk for everybody within the Department of War Crimes, as well as for anybody they do business with. So they've got to be purged. And yet they're fighting this war right now with Anthropic. And this is something, as I pointed out, it's never been done before to a domestic company. So think about that. Think about the fact that their number one mission is not to go to war and kill other people in other countries. Their number one mission is America first. America first has to be subjugated, dominated, surveilled. And that's what they want this Anthropic, they want these red lines removed. They don't want any red lines that are going to stop them from domestic surveillance at the Pentagon. What do they have to do with domestic surveillance? They ought to be defending us from foreign threats. We don't want a standing army. We certainly don't want a standing army of big brother troops. But Pete Hegseth does. And think about the vanity and the pride of this guy. He's now banned photographers.
Picture's outrageous. It makes me look utterly ridiculous. It's simply not possible to make me look so absurd unless it was malicious. I demand this be corrected at once.
My image is impeccable. That's it. No more photographers at the Pentagon.
Yeah. Yeah, he already didn't want them asking him any questions, right? So we're only going to have people who've signed an loyalty oath basically, to him that are going to be allowed to be in the Pentagon. So he kicked out most of the mainstream media.
It's so ridiculous. He renames it the War Department. He's the Secretary of War, and he's behaving like a preening homosexual.
Yep.
You're the Secretary of War, and you're concerned about how you look in these photos.
That's right. And what caused all this was he'd already banned all the major media outlets because they said, we're not going to sign something saying that we can't talk to people. Not, these are declassified documents, but if it's something that Pete Hegseth doesn't like, he's going to come after you, right? They said, we're not going to sign that. And so even Fox News refused to do that. So they found some people who would toady up to that. People like Laura Loomer, for example, that's the press pool that's there at the Pentagon. But after they invaded and aggressed against Iran, he held a press conference. And he was very upset about the fact that some people asked him some outrageous questions like, what's the point? When is this going to end? How do we keep this from spreading? He said, this isn't going to be like the past failed wars. How is that going to be different? How dare you ask me questions like that? And he was very upset about the pictures that they took of him. So it already had major outlets like Fox News, ABC News, CBS, CNN, NBC News, legacy papers like the Associated Press, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. You're not allowed in here because you're going to cover only what I tell you. And we're going to, you sign this piece of paper. That's what you're going to do. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. So he got very upset. He called questions about, what's the purpose of this war? What's the timeline? How do we keep this from stretching on and on? He said, those are gotcha type questions. I'm not, how dare you ask
expect me to have an answer? You don't ask me an open-ended question that I can waffle on about? Come on.
That's right. Well, I mean, come on, that's a gotcha question. We all know that the purpose of this war is to kill whoever Israel wants us to kill for however long they want us to kill. So don't ask me a gotcha question like that. Don't put that on record. And so then he got very upset about the photographers.
Lethality. Anything other than that, that's a gotcha.
Yeah, no morality, no legality. So the purpose of this is for me to preen and to show off my power and to boast about it. We've never had a Secretary of Defense do that. I mean, the appropriate way for these people to approach this is with somber spirit and with reluctance, because you know that you're killing your own soldiers to some extent, and you know that you're killing a lot of other people. This should not be something that you glory in. It's disgusting. Disgusting to watch this. So I want to ask him, what do we do to prevent this conflict from spiraling out? Did you not hear my remarks earlier? How dare you ask me a gotcha question like that? So now it's only going to be the staff photographers of the Department of Defense, and they'll make sure that he's got the proper makeup. And if they happen to get a picture of him raging like Adolf Hitler, then that won't make the papers, right? They'll keep that picture and save it, probably for the archives. Once he starts raving like that. And then we have the other side of this. Nothing unflattering with that. But now the shoe thing that I talked about yesterday. Marco Rubio and a lot of other people are getting these $145 Florsheim shoes from Trump. And folks, this is not a minor story because it tells you so much about the character of these people in the cabinet and the culture of the Trump regime. Because Trump looked over at the shoes of some of these guys, and some of them had some pretty expensive shoes because they've got a lot of money. And he said those shoes are, to put it politely, excrement. What size shoe do you wear? And he wants everybody to wear the same shoes that he wears, right? And so you have this situation of Marco Rubio comically wearing shoes that are way too big for him. It's not just that everybody's got to wear the same shoes, right? This is the kind of stuff that you see with teenagers at high schools. I saw this when I was a teenager in high school, and I still see it with others. There's the picture of the shoes. Look at is he even walking those things? They're sticking out like an inch behind his heel. But you've seen the situation where you got all these girls, and sometimes it's guys as well, all dressing exactly alike. And I remember going to a party once, and every girl basically was wearing the same white top. It's like, this is crazy, It's like a cult mentality, and that's what the Trump administration is. It's like a bunch of people in high school who haven't grown up yet. And so, little Marco.
If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe it'd be surprised to see that you've been blind.
Little Marco does what I say.
Walk a mile in my shoes. Just walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, just walk a mile in my shoes.
Trump. That's how I look at this. I thought, did he not ask these guys what shoe size? And this is the other part of the story, right? This is the other shoe to drop, okay, of this story. He goes around the table. He goes, okay, we're going to get you guys some good shoes because I'm the one who wears the good shoes. All of you wear a red tie and a blue suit because that's what I wear. And they imitate him voluntarily. But then he wants them to all wear these same $145 Florsheim shoes. And some of them are kind of upset about that. Said, well, I got some really nice Louis Vuitton shoes here. And of course, Melania wears Prada, right? That was what was on the billboard of that movie theater when they're going to play the Melania documentary. They said, well, on Friday we find out if Melania wears Prada, right? Because that was the Devil Wears Prada movie that was playing there. Anyway, he goes around and he says, so what size shoe do you wear? Write this down and everything. And Marco's got small feet. He doesn't want to be trolled for small feet. So he tells him a bigger shoe size than he actually is. And then he's got to be humbled by walking around with these shoes that are too big for him. And evidently, just as we see with this war, he can't figure out, well, I could buy some Florsheim shoes that would be the right size, and Trump would never know. Instead, he's going to walk around in shoes that don't fit him. This is the way these guys operate with the Constitution. This is the way Mike Johnson and the rest of the GOP operate in Congress. They are so afraid of this bullying thug, this mafia don, that the mafia family of the GOP and the Trump regime will humiliate themselves wearing these things. It truly is amazing, a perfect metaphor for Congress, the cabinet, and the Trump mafia family values that you got there.
It's also indicative of the type of sycophantic, subservient losers we have in power.
That's right.
Marco Rubio and Vivek Ramaswamy have both been pictured wearing shoes that are much too large for them, simply for their own vanity and to appease Trump.
And remember the Ron DeSantis pictures where we had some kind of elevator shoes that built up the heel in the back to a ridiculous amount. And he was basically on his tiptoes. And these guys, next they'll be doing the Mar-a-Lago face with all the lip filler and all the rest of the stuff. These are not serious people. This is much worse than the powdered wigs that everybody was wearing at the time of Washington. One person who was a female White House official said, all the boys have them. Notice that she says boys, not men. They're not men. All the boys have them, she said. It's hysterical because everybody is afraid not to wear them because the master said so. Kiss the ring. The president kind of holds up his hands and says, no, hold on a second. There's something much more important here. Shoes, Vance recalled. J.D. Vance said. He peers over the Resolute desk and he says, Marco, J.D., you guys have crappy shoes. We're going to get you better shoes. He goes out and grabs a catalog. This happens to be another politician in the room, and he actually runs us through this incredible shoe catalog. The president is gifting us with 4 pairs of shoes each. Marco, what's your shoe size? And Marco, apparently an 11 and a half, Vance adds, he says, JD, what's your shoe size? And my shoe size is 13. He asked this other politician who's in the room. I don't want to embarrass him. Maybe it was Marco, really. Who knows what his shoe size is? And he says, 7, says Vance. The president kind of leans back in his chair and says, you know, you can tell a lot about a man by the size of his shoe.
Probably, you know, how hard he is to knock over, I guess. But
this is like this is like Stanley Kubrick and his eccentric presidents that he has, right? Clueless, right? Jack D. Ripper, the general. You know, he can tell a lot about a man because of the size of his shoes. Like, I can tell a lot about a man who thinks that he can tell a lot about a man about the size of his shoes. That's the key thing. He says, so anyway, that's they're all afraid to tell him the truth because he mocked the guy who had small feet. So then Marco Rubio ups his size, and then he walks around in shoes that are too big for him. So pathetic. This guy wants to be president. He's not even his own man. You know, how can he tell other people that when he's such a subservient sycophant? The question is, like Bob Dylan said, you're going to serve someone, right? Who's he going to serve? Dylan meant that you're going to either serve God or the devil, right? And of course, we know where that choice is as well. Some sources told Wall Street Journal they've heard a cabinet secretary grumbling about feeling pressured to set aside their Louis Vuitton shoes to wear Florsheims when they visited the White House. And those who receive a pair from the president feel compelled to wear them in his presence. I want to know if Tucker Carlson does that. He's one of the people, by the way, who got the shoe. You know, he got some shoes from Trump, part of the inner circle, like Sean Hannity and some of these other people. So does Tucker Carlson humiliate himself to wear the shoes? Is he too afraid not to wear them? And I've got a list here. Here it is, I think. No, that's not the list. But Ewan McDonald said, Trump buying shoes for his cabinet is a way of belittling them and humiliating them. Rubio even had such a lack of dignity and self-respect before Trump that he's willing to humiliate himself by shuffling around in shoes that are too big for him. That's right. Conservative columnist Matt Lewis said, well, these shoes could cause blisters. Well, these are guys who evidently are not chafing when their policies don't fit in the Constitution. So I don't know if they get chafing and blisters from their feet. Their policies and being a Zionist sock puppets, I guess they got to just get a thicker sock puppet to wear on their feet, and everything will be fine. Well, we're right to the point. Tony's ready to come on. I want to talk about what's happening with gold and where this all heads. I mean, things are accelerating very rapidly, and we've seen a lot of this is rhyming with the history of the 1973 oil embargo, except this time it's the Trump oil embargo, not the OPEC oil embargo. But a lot of things are lined up, and a lot of things are lined up. The things that are different are things that are going to make it much worse this time, quite frankly.
Real quickly, though, before we go, we do have some tips and comments that we should get to. Mm-hmm. Star Barkley, thank you so much for the tip. We really do appreciate it. He says, no one knows the hour or the day he will return, so keep your lamps trimmed and burning. Be vigilant and pray always.
That's right. Yes. And we've got a lot of people telling us that they know exactly when it's going to happen. Disregard those people.
Yeah.
Jesus said he didn't know. So these people have got some inside scoop that even the Lord Jesus Christ doesn't have. So ignore those people.
Yeah, you can safely disregard. IRS Machine Gun, thank you so much.
Yes,
really do appreciate it. So just filled up my diesel work truck. 32 gallons cost me $160. Wow. Where can I get some Trump I did that stickers?
Yeah. Do we still have that in here? I think. I don't think we got that in here anymore. I'll have to put that back in.
Yeah. And IRS Machine Gun again, thank you very much, says them shoes are made for walking and they're going to walk all over you. It's nice to think that maybe they're giving themselves blisters as they destroy the country.
That's right.
And then we have KSoul585. My sister-in-law is a MAGA cultist and a Christian. There's no talking to her. Her cult actually believes there is rainbow money and a debt jubilee for the people coming, so none of this is a concern.
Wow. Well,
there's a lot of people that are totally out to lunch about this stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's there's not really too much that we can do to reason with people, and sometimes you just have to do things that are going to try to help you, and that's what we're going to be talking about with Tony.
And North American House Hippo. He says, I've seen this movie so many times before. This is worse than Beverly Hills Cop 3 and Men in Black 4 put together. And that's
right.
real bad, folks. That's dire times.
Yeah, we're in dire straits, and I don't mean the group either. We're going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
APS Radio delivers multiple channels of music right to your mobile device. Get the APS Radio app today and listen wherever you go.
Welcome back. Joining us now is Tony Arterburn of Wise Wolf Gold, and he has set up davidknight.gold to let him know that you're coming through us. So you can go either way. You can go davidknight.gold to take you to Tony Arterburn. He can help you to gradually accumulate gold, which is a wise way to do it. Everything has become so volatile that the big swings happening all the time. So getting it over a period of time is a wise way to accumulate this at Wise Wolf. And he has Wolfpack that you can sign up and set up a particular savings program to extend, just budget a certain amount that you want to set aside in gold each month. That's a great way to accumulate. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be back, David. Good to see you. I'm wearing shoes that fit. By the way, I buy my own shoes. I've got some moccasins. They're nice and comfortable. I don't have to impress anybody except for my dog Beans. She
got
does
them golden slippers.
And golden slippers.
Oh, them golden slippers. Well, a lot of people are looking at this chaos, and right away we had gold shoot way up over the weekend. On Monday it was way up, and then the American markets open, as Gerald Slinty said, goes down. Same thing happened with oil. Oil was way up because people were reacting to the reality of it. And then apparently there's some manipulation that's happening in the American market somehow. The plunge protection team or whatever, or this spike protection team, I guess, trying to make sure that gold and oil don't spike. Nevertheless, the reality is there. It's the same type of thing that we've been talking about for a long time. When you look at what the federal government is doing with debt and deficit, and when you look at the inflation and the money creation, all the rest of the stuff, those are real factors that are going to have an effect. They can manipulate it in the short term. They can try to play games with it, but it's going to win out in the end. And so I went back and looked at it. I thought, there's so many parallels between 1973 and the OPEC oil embargo. And I was kind of curious as to how gold had taken off. And it took a while before it started taking off because everybody was focused on oil. And we see that happening again this time. It was the average price in 1973, even with the OPEC oil embargo, was $97. And but then by the time we got to 1979, it went from $225 to $560 something that year. And then by the beginning of 1980, it jumped up to $800 and then went back down to like the 560 level. After that. But that's kind of the pattern that we're looking at. An 8.5 time, the peak was 8.5 times larger than where it was even after the embargo had started. And so I'm looking at this and thinking, well, if history rhymes, we could be looking at something that's like 8 to 9 times higher in a couple of years as this stuff is percolating through, because gold was reacting not just to the immediate oil spike, but it was reacting to the fact that it had to percolate through the system. And we're going to see the effects of the oil price increase percolate through the system. And the inflation and the stagflation that was happening with all that was percolating through. And so it may take a while, but we're seeing articles here on Kitco. One guy said, well, $6,000. Another guy says $10,000. But if it went up anywhere close to what it did in 1973, from 1973 to 1980, it'd be up to $40,000, $45,000. It's crazy. And of course,
I think
past
you're right
performance
to
does
point that
predict
out. There's
Yeah.
similarities between those timelines, and you're also right to point out there's some sort of plunge protection team here in the U.S. when the financial sector trying to suppress these prices that are running away from us, the price of gold and the price of crude oil. As a matter of fact, I was spending some time with a friend of mine I've known for over 30 years, who's now a high up executive in an oil drilling company. He travels all over the world. This is a very smart guy. And we were watching in real time the foreign markets as they opened up on Sunday, what the prices of crude were. And he just looked at me and said, I've been doing this for 25 years. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. This has never happened. This percentage and jump in the price of crude that fast has never happened. And he said it may just start running away where they can't stop it, where it's going to get to $200 a barrel. He said that's a real possibility.
Yeah.
So given that and his knowledge on that, I looked at the markets as they opened up. You're exactly right. But the difference is, David, if you go back to the 70s, 1973 was the last year that the United States ran a trade surplus. We never ran a trade surplus again. After that, it was trade deficits into the trillions, and that's a massive transfer of wealth that went to places like China. But at the end of the 70s, you're right, gold was near $600 an ounce and then hit $800 an ounce in 1980. But you had the ability for the United States and the financial sector to suppress that. And they did. They raised interest rates to the teens. There was a lot of financial maneuvering to take focus away from the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. And they used that system and it worked for a long time. They can't do that anymore.
Right.
The debt of the U.S. in 1980 was $1 trillion, and it took us, from the beginning of our history in 1776 to 1979, 80 to get there. Now we do $1 trillion every 90 days or so, and you and I have covered that. So I don't think they have the ability to suppress that runaway gold price anymore like they did in 1980. And you're right, the predictions of $6,000 and $10,000 gold, I don't think that's off the mark at all, given our current economic climate. Last week, we talked about, and again, I looked all over to try to see if any major network covered this, but you and I talked about it. The dollar got surpassed by gold as the world's reserve asset.
That's right.
And we've talked about that for years. And it was always number one was the dollar, but because of the massive accumulation by central banks of physical gold, and then the repricing going into 5,000 plus, that creates a holding that gold is higher than the dollar and the reserve holdings of the central banks. So we've crossed a lot of boundaries with de-dollarization and the world monetary system. So there's no way they can suppress what's truly happening, which is de-dollarization across the board.
That's right. As a matter of fact, this article that's talking about $6,000 gold said, well, you don't have to beat the U.S. militarily. All you have to do is beat the bond market. Heavy reliance on U.S. dollars by foreign nations that are concurrently dependent on imported energy. And when all oil price spikes and the dollar strengthens, foreign entities are forced into a difficult position. He points out that they have to have energy, they have to have food, they have to have these commodities. And so they will sell their dollar assets, starting with treasuries, because they're the deepest and the most liquid, to essentially buy oil. The dynamic creates a cycle where foreign nations effectively use the U.S. bond market to finance their energy deficits, driving yields higher. And so that's what it starts to become a cycle, feedback cycle with that as well. And so it's going to put pressure on them to basically, more pressure on them to dump their treasury bills, which they already don't like because of the actions of both Biden with his sanctions and Trump continuing those sanctions and adding tariffs and other things like that. So people are already trying to move away because we are the mad hegemon. It's out there. Sounds like some kind of a Pokemon thing, the mad hegemon that's out there. And so everybody's trying to pull back away from this anyway, but they'll have to do it out of necessity. So time is really on Iran's side. And they've thought about this from a strategic standpoint, which obviously the planners in the Pentagon never thought about anything other than we have the most planes and the most bombs, and we can, the kind of stuff that you hear Pete Hegseth boasting about all the time.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of the von Schlieffen plan from World War I with the Germans. They had all this time, decades to draw this thing up. They were always looking into the best way to use troop movements and whatever. They're trying to keep up with technology, and it wasn't even about any sort of real goals other than just defeating something. But they just kept drawing up this plan and drawing up this plan, and finally it got into action. The von Schlieffen plan of World War I, and they thought it was about a quick victory. And of course, you fast forward, 4+ years, and we just had the Great Civil War of the West, and millions died, and it's a wasteland, just an utter carnage and evil. Mm-hmm. So, these military types, when they have this,
and it's also the aggressors too, isn't it? It's like the people who started off, they always want a blitzkrieg or something, right?
That's exactly right. Like the Lightning War. Shock and awe. Remember shock and awe? I followed behind shock and awe. Didn't shock and awe very much in effect. I can attest to that. There was I think a delusion behind this type of thinking, and it's demonic in my opinion. They always have some arrogance or hubris behind them that the rest of us are just we don't think this way. I'm looking at, I don't see any upside. I mean, how can you not convince me that this is just some sort of humiliation ritual for chaos and like we're being destroyed from within with bad policy? Does anybody really think that we're going to win this in some way? And what is winning when the world markets, how fragile this system is? You look at the price of crude; it's going to destroy whatever. If you had any economic growth or any sort of progress,
that's right.
It's being destroyed right now.
That's right.
How long is it going to take to recover?
War Pete thinks we're going to win this because he doesn't think about anything other than destruction and death. And what a clown he is! I saw
just a clown.
I saw a couple of retired colonels and generals. Gregor was one of them. And another guy, not in one interview, but in a couple of different ones. And they were saying, look at this press briefing that's being given by War Pete and by Dan Kane, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he said, when Dan Kane gets up there, he starts giving the standard presentation. Well, we got this many planes and we sunk this many ships and all the rest of a lot of the stuff that's kind of like what War Pete does. But he says, I've sat through those briefings through these different wars we've had, Vietnam and Iraq and all the rest of stuff, and it's meaningless. This is like Robert McNamara's body count. It really doesn't mean anything in the bigger picture of things, and they've lost the bigger picture, as you point out.
Well, there's a lot of echoes of McNamara and Rumsfeld here, but we've reached a new level of stupid. We're in a new, and I'm sorry, it is terrifying. This is the Secretary of War. I mean, you renamed it, you own it. And you're right, the Secretary of War Crimes. I mean, this just to start off the war by killing, 177 members of a girls' school in Iran. Yeah. That's confirmed at antiwar.com, and that's been confirmed. Yeah. They can deny it all they want, but that's what they did.
That's right.
And this is just...
and more importantly, Tony, they don't have the decency to apologize for it. And they don't have the respect for the intelligence of the American people to even come up with a plausible denial, right? That's what Trump is doing. He's, tomahawks. Everybody's got tomahawks. Iran's got tomahawks. I'm sure Iran did that to their own people. That kind of stupidity. And, our missiles are accurate. Well, if you're saying it was a tomahawk, then that's an accurate missile. Like I said when I was talking about this earlier in the week, I had a friend who was in the military, and he said, we talk about the cruise missiles. We can pick which window of the Kremlin we want to put it through. That may have been a little bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. And so he says, everybody's got tomahawks. Absolute lie. I mean, they don't even sell those to Israel. And then he proceeds from there. That's the same kind of lies we saw in Minnesota. They have no respect for our intelligence. And why should they? People voted for them.
Well, it's all based off a lie, whether or not they intentionally did it or they just skipped over the fact that they're doing their due diligence of what target. Both are lies. Mm-hmm. Both have ill intent. And every aspect of this I've seen in real time. I've seen, their so-called smart bombs that hit civilian targets. Mm-hmm. And it is so awful. You have to imagine if you're hitting civilian targets, and maybe it's not on purpose, but they are collateral damage, you are exacting a toll, and you are creating death and destruction. It should be such a solemn thing that you're forced to do it. We just went and did this with no provocation, with no reason, and there's no strategic or defense advantage to this.
Yeah.
So I mean, the people that did this, in my opinion, I mean, somebody like Pete, this is just devoid of any sort of Christian character
That's right.
or understanding of the real consequences of war. And I'm afraid for my country when I see stuff like this. This is complete arrogance.
Well, Senator John Kennedy apologized for it, and he's the only one, Democrat or Republican, who's apologized for it. Now, some people, some Democrats applauded him for apologizing for that. So we got it wrong. We didn't mean to do that. But that was not the response of Trump, not the response of War Pete. War Pete says, uses it as an occasion to boast about the fact we don't target civilians and our missiles are accurate and so forth. And so, that's his response. Couldn't possibly happen. Now, Scott Ritter, when he was talking about it, said, he is still haunted by one particular case like this that he was involved in. He said, we did our due diligence. We had really good reason to believe that was where some of Saddam Hussein's people were. But he said, it turned out we were wrong, even with all the due diligence. He said, I live with that every day. I think about the consequences of that. But he said, what's happening with this? They've got so many targets. It's kind of like what they did in Minnesota. They said, we want X number of arrests every day. Just go out there and grab people. And he said that leads to sloppy work. And yet, it might be something, might involve this Anthropic, Claude's AI, because they were using that in terms of targeting. And yet when you look at that, what Pete Hegseth wants to do is give even more discretion to AI. If AI made the mistake, or if it was old data that they had, or whatever it was, he's already shut down a lot of the oversight, and he wants to shut down even more oversight of this. And he has the audacity to say, we don't target civilians. They just kill everybody, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, we'll tell that to the people in Dresden and the firebombing of Tokyo.
That's right.
My Lai. We had you can go on and on if you know history, and that happens. That's all countries. This happens to any sort of military power that's fighting a war. There's always some sort of darkness behind. Nobody gets out of that unscathed. But to fight this war, you have to. I have not seen a plausible explanation other than this is Operation Epstein Fury, that we're acting on behalf of a foreign government and doing their bidding. That's all I see.
Yeah.
This is not in the American interest.
It's despicable, and it goes against everything he promised his own voters. I don't understand why there hasn't been a bigger price, but there may be a bigger price to pay by the time they get to the election. I don't know. But so that was one person saying, 6,000 by mid-year in terms of gold, based on what he's looking at. You've got another analyst saying he thinks 10,000 by 2029. And he said, everybody talking about $10,000 gold just a year or two ago, everybody thought you were crazy. Now it doesn't look like crazy, does it? Because it spiked up to what, 5,300? Was that about 5,300 is what we got or something?
Yeah, over the first, at the weekend of the strike on the 28th, going into the first part of March, it was 5,300. And then there's some profit taking and some sell-off. But we've crossed so many boundaries here, David. It's hard. We're not going to go back to, the way that gold pricing used to be. And there's a few different times when 2011 is another great example of when they were able to suppress gold again by outwardly showing that there's going to be fiscal responsibility and that the Fed's not going to do massive quantitative easing and TARP and all the rest of that stuff and bail out these banks anymore. And people calmed down. Silver sold off, gold sold off. I don't think that'll happen again. I don't think that they can truly suppress either crude anymore or the gold markets. I don't think they can suppress. And so $10,000 gold, very plausible within this decade. And all we would need is just to continue down the path that we're on right now. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Gold was. I remember I went to the trading floor in August of 2024, and I was leaving, and I did a post about it. And I thought, this is really historic. There's $2,500 gold. Like that. That's so crazy. Because I've followed this for so many years, and I was like, 2,500. What a milestone. Well, here we are, and it's 2026, not quite 2 years later at all, and we're looking at talking about $10,000 gold at the end of the decade. I think completely plausible because in 6,000 definitely within striking distance. Just let this keep going.
Yeah,
you got to remember.
Oh, it will. That's the thing. It will. They have war gamed this out. We didn't plan this, but they did. They planned the response.
Absolutely. All they have to do, like Iran right now, and think about the oil exporting countries and those who rely, they're going to get a windfall profit from this. Of course, there's going to be massive downturns in other parts of the economy, but think of the amount of margin that these countries are going to be able to bring in, just the price of crude alone, and the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked 90%, and that's where 20% of the outflows used to come from globally. So all bets are off.
It's 25% of all shipping that goes through the Strait of Hormuz, because there's a lot of other stuff that besides oil that goes through there: food, clothes, electronics, and all the rest of the stuff. And so it is a massive, massive oversight to have the arrogance to think that we're going to take them out so quickly. We don't even have to worry about that. We don't even have to plan about that. Hatchcar61 said, please send a thank you to Tony and his crew. Received my Wolfpack package today. Stacking made easy. Well, I'll tell you who's not having an easy time with stacking, and that is Dubai. They said their gold flows have been crushed because it's not just the Strait of Hormuz. These are flights. You know, they're not putting the gold on a tanker. It's not that heavy, but they're putting them on airplanes, and there's so many problems with air flights being restricted as well. It's not just sea freight that's restricted; it's air freight that's restricted as well. And so it's created just like we see these tankers are all full and sitting there in the water. They said that's a record amount. Never had that much oil sitting on the water in tankers. And they don't have any onshore storage facilities left with this stuff either. And so you're getting the same type of thing with gold, and it is stacking up. And so ironically, you're getting these places like in Dubai and other places where they are so heavily stocked with gold, they're getting desperate to move the inventory. They're discounting it. There. So that's kind of a crazy way to look at it. I've got a question here, Tony, for you from Jason Barker, Knights of the Storm. He said, ask Tony what the sourcing challenges for silver are compared to a couple of months ago. I hear it's getting really hard to get inventory.
It's getting harder and harder. And what's crazy about that is that there's two prongs to that. On one side, the refiners mostly aren't melting the silver, which that would help with supply. I'm not sure exactly why they aren't, but there's a lot of and I think maybe the price volatility is one reason, but a lot of the refiners are not melting. This rise in prices and then the turn back of those prices, the volatility has hurt a lot of people. It's hurt a lot of the supply chains, hurt a lot of dealers. And luckily, Wise Wolf, we came through that pretty much unscathed, but I have to pay attention to it. 24 I have to dream about it and where I'm going to land, because it's all over the place. So my mind is constantly calculating what the next buy batch is going to be and what I'm going to have to sell off and what my percentages are. But I know for a fact it did hurt a lot. So it's really disrupted supply. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're living in an environment of hyperinflation, like the Weimar Republic or what was the place? The African nation, Zimbabwe, I think they had.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah. And, so we see that, and we've seen the tales of people. It was even happening in Argentina there, people talking about how merchants would have bread on the shelf and they would have to constantly be changing the price throughout the day for this kind of stuff. That's the environment that you live in. I don't envy you at all at Wise Wolf.
It's difficult, but I'm glad that I have this opportunity. I think it's a good puzzle to solve, and I get to help a lot of people, because if you've been buying from Wolfpack for a while, like you've protected the purchasing power of your dollar, even with paying premiums, even with shipping and all the rest of the stuff that we have to charge. You've done well to protect yourself, and I think that will be the case for many years to come. If you're putting your dollars and fiat into metals, I think you still got a long way to go to protect yourself.
That's right. There was a comment from a guy who worked for Goldman Sachs in terms of commodity things, and he says, we've always seen this type of thing in the past. Big movement out of soft stuff like technology stocks and things like that into the real stuff. And so we're at a switching point right now where that is happening again. The pendulum is moving again towards commodities like oil and base metals and precious metals and stuff like that, infrastructure. And you better believe there's going to be a lot of spending on infrastructure because nothing chews up infrastructure like wars, especially now. They can target the infrastructure so precisely. And we've seen that already in Russia and Ukraine. And and already in the Gulf War, we've seen that. People, we have the U.S. and Israel targeting the oil refineries of Iran, and they're returning the favor. So even if this war were to end tomorrow, the knock-on effects of this are going to be very, very long. It's going to be a big bottleneck of constipation from these tankers, just like we saw when Trump took the boot off of our necks with a lockdown. It created all kinds of train wreck and derailments with the supply chain, and it took a long time to iron that out. And a lot of the effects of things that happened back in 2020 have still not been ironed out. North American House Hippo, he says, for all of Trump's bluster, isn't it interesting that he hasn't taken credit for doubling the price of gold? Because that's a metric of failure for him, isn't it?
That's a good point. Well, the saddest part about all of this is it's so predictable.
Yeah.
We talk about this for years. Like, this is what, you have currency wars and trade wars, and then you have kinetic actual wars. You could have avoided all of this. So it was a choice. Like it's the only thing we
He's
learned
more interested in who's wearing Florsheim shoes. And what is the size of your foot? That's how I size up a man, right?
Why do we have to have Trump? Was Nero not available? Could we not get that guy? Burn the whole thing down. I think
he's more like Caligula,
Very much, yes, because of very much on the spectrum of that. It's really sad to watch, David. And who knows where all these prices are going to go? I mean, I think the most something that sticks with me and when I look at prices or price predictions for metals, or it could be Bitcoin too, is just how small the markets are. I mean, gold's like a $20 trillion market cap, but the world is like a $600 trillion asset pool. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're talking about just a small amount goes into gold. And I think silver's like $3 trillion market cap, something, maybe 4. It's a small thing. Bitcoin's like 2. Compared to the hundreds of trillions that are supposedly floating in currencies and sovereign wealth funds and bonds and real estate and other things around the world. And when that stuff, and you're right, the Goldman Sachs trader is right, volatility and then uncertainty, all those funds are going to migrate into something else that's more stable, that you can count. I mean, and you don't know where tech's going to go. You don't know where any of these, like even medical or any of these stuff is going to go.
Well, even tech is going to be affected by this stuff. They were saying, the Gulf states have been big purchasers of this stuff, and they were ramping up data centers, not just buying NVIDIA chips, but, entire data centers that they were in the process of budgeting to build. That ain't going to happen now because they're going to have to, they got other things on their plate that's going to happen. It's amazing when you look at how complicated all this stuff is. And it just comes from the hubris of central planners who think that they understand the way the world works. Nobody does. It's like Leonard and what's the guy's name that did iPencil? Leonard Reed, was that his name? Yeah. And, he talks about how nobody's planning a pencil, but it's all this kind of invisible hand of Adam Smith type of thing. And that's the problem. Trump and his planners have shown that they don't understand the first thing about how the global economy works. If he did, he wouldn't be trying to throw a monkey wrench into it all the time with his egonomics of tariffs. I don't like this guy over here who's the leader of that country, so I'm going to put 100% tariff on him tomorrow. That type of thing. It's stupid. It's beyond stupid. A Syrian girl says, with the projected prices of crude oil, I think a lot of people are in danger of dying in the dark and cold next winter. Yeah, and of going broke as well. In the UK, one guy was talking about how liquid natural gas is something they've been pushing them toward. They said, we don't want to have coal and we don't want to have oil. They're too dirty, so you're going to burn gas. Well, now they don't have the gas. And they said they're going to pay a lot more for it. That's why Lindsey Graham is rubbing his hands together like a conniving fly and saying, we're going to get rich. You know, his military industrial people are going to get rich replacing the bombs, and then they're going to get rich, he thinks, because they're going to control 31% of the world's oil, but you can't get it out. You know, if Iran blows up the refineries and their ports and the oil wells, oil fields and things like that, how are they going to get to that oil? They can't get to the oil in Venezuela. So, you know, all of this stuff is stupid. Yeah, it's stupid.
I mean, what's the good of being rich if the world's on fire? I mean, really, do they think these things through? I don't know. You know what we didn't talk about?
And they have their finger on the button as well.
That's exactly right. And really, that's terrifying. And people like Lindsey Graham that actually have power.
Yeah.
And I think we get the leaders that we deserve, I think, at some level, like the American people.
What I deserve to get him.
Like South Carolina is like, well, he does support Israel. And, you know, that's what you get, folks. You get Lindsey Graham. You know, we didn't talk about, David, there was one thing in all of the news headlines that I thought, we better highlight that. And that was the fact that BlackRock and Blackstone stopped the outflows of some of their private equity funds, and they're not the only ones. There's others, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, the contagion is spreading. I think it's up like 3 or 4 of them now that have put limits on that.
That is something to watch. That's another thing that didn't make a lot of headlines, just in the circles that you and I pay attention to and some of the things. But I think that is a good indicator of
that's huge.
Possible credit crunch and liquidity issues, bank runs. I've had some people text me, ask me about banking, and you know, I'm very cautious.
Yeah,
looking at how much liquidity you've got in a bank at any given time. Always be careful of that.
And we look at the private equity. I just yesterday I looked it up because I asked Gerald Celente on air. I said, so is this tied together with commercial real estate? He goes, oh yeah. And I looked it up after the show, and it's like that's a huge part of this private equity fund. The things that Gerald Celente has been talking about at Trend Journal for a long time. The commercial real estate bust because of what happened with 2020 and what Trump did, his first round of chaos and control. And so the this ongoing very slow moving juggernaut of disaster is starting to now manifest itself through some of these hedge funds that are there. Absolutely. A citizen of America says, I remember not too long ago we had a flash flood and a bunch of our young schoolgirls were washed away at Camp Mystic. And I thought to myself, how horrible. And the nation grieved. But somehow they can't be horrified by this, and they can't accept any responsibility for it either. And that's the key thing, isn't it? You know, that's one of the first things that happens in war. First casualty is truth, but it's also the second casualty is the humanity of the people in the other country. You know, we treat them as some kind of subhuman. They're on a different team now. You know, they've got a different flag and different leaders, so they're no longer human. And we don't regard them as human. And that's a good example of it, I think.
Yeah, imagine how horrifying it is years later when you realize they probably weren't the enemy to begin with.
That's right.
Even if you did dehumanize them, and then we learn about, there wasn't any dancing Iranians that I remember from my research on 9/11. So there's so many lies, but you're so right. The first casualty of war is the truth, and then your humanity goes as well, and then you join into the ceremony of things, and that's why I want to be 1,000 miles away from whatever this is. Just karmically, spiritually, don't want any of it on me.
That's right.
And I don't want anybody in my audience, anybody listens to this, to be pulled in at all from this propaganda. It's so predictable what's going on, but it's also really sad.
We get in these seasons of war, and this bloodlust kicks in for everybody, which is truly insane. And when you look at it, the lies that this all began with, completely ignoring our history with Iran. I could understand why Iran would think of us as Satan. When you look at the fact that we've been coming after them for 73 years. I mean, we don't leave them alone. We overthrow their government. We put in a king with a horrific secret police that arrests, tortures, and kills people, and trained by the CIA and Mossad. They suffer under that for a couple of decades. Then we start pushing in Planned Parenthood and all of our disgusting values into the country. And then when they overreact in both of these ways and they come in with a very strict Islamic government, what we do is we ally ourselves with Saddam Hussein and try to wipe them off the face of the map. When that doesn't work, we do the kind of stuff we're doing now. We assassinate one leader after the other, and then we attack the country. It's like, what's going on? All of this is being done from our perspective, and not from their perspective. But the American public looks at it, and all they know about with Iran is, well, they kidnapped people at our embassy. And so, they were the aggressor. They kidnapped and held these people. And if you understand the history behind Iran-Contra, you know just how involved Ronald Reagan's campaign manager, Bill Casey, Wild Bill Casey from the OSS, who was one of the founders of the CIA, and how he told them, cutting deals with these people that were supposed to be unapproachable. We'll give you spare parts. You give us money, and we set up a secret war, because that's what they always want. We get black market money for a secret war. We sell you parts so that you can kill people and oppress your own people. It's just insane when you look at it.
I thought it was funny. Somebody played clips of Condoleezza Rice, and she was saying, well, Iran has been our enemies, for 47 years. And I thought, well, except for some brief interludes, like when you dealt with, hostages for missiles, whether in Iran-Contra, and things like that, or the flight that supposedly George H.W. Bush took over there secretly to meet with the Iranian officials to hold the hostages a little longer till after the inauguration of Reagan.
That's right.
There's all sorts of history that goes back.
Yeah, it wasn't enough to win the election. You had to keep the hostages there until the day that Reagan is sworn in. Yeah, absolutely. And I saw one of these Iranian officials, and he was, he teaches school now. He wasn't really in the government, but he was very much a part of the regime. And he said, I tell this to the younger Iranians, and they don't believe me how evil America is. And he says, and he was so convinced. And I think what happened with that Iranian jetliner, I think that was an accident. I think it was exactly the same kind of accident that took down Flight 800. It's just that they couldn't cover it up when it happened to a foreign country's commercial airliner. But he thought that was deliberate because that's his opinion of America. And I can understand that. But, when we get upset with the Iranians because they don't like their government or whatever, their government leaders, just understand what the rest of the world might think about Americans and how this national security state has undermined the security and the safety and the peace and the prosperity of you and your family, because these chickens are going to come home to roost. You talk about terrorist attacks. I don't think that this FBI document is credible, but I think the U.S. government is perfectly capable of doing a terrorist attack, false flag, and I think there's people around the world that would love to do this and not have it be a false flag because of what we've done to people for so long. And we're just making this country so dangerous by the actions of the CIA and the Pentagon.
Multi-factored danger in there, because people, once there is a false flag or attack, they will fall in line, and it will. And people like us that will see through it, we might have a little while right now where things are like, oh, I agree with David, or I agree with Tony, because we're not real popular when it comes to,
that's right.
Analysis, because people want to have their delusions, and it'll be even harder for us, especially if there's some sort of galvanizing thing or an attack. God forbid. It's such an awful thing. I don't want any of this. We don't have time for it, and I'm afraid of what it'll usher in. But
I've already seen some of that. When it comes to the border, you look at what's happening in Minnesota, what the Trump regime was doing. And I said, I've seen where this is headed for the longest time. Alex did documentary after documentary about the police state, did 4 of them. And yet, when it's being done by Trump, everybody cheers it. When it's being done to throw out these dirty foreigners that came in here, then everybody's for it. And again, that's the dehumanizing of this. Well, they're not citizens, so I don't care what happens to them. It's like, well, we don't have citizens' rights as much as we got human rights in the Declaration of Independence. It's because we are created in the image of God, not because somebody in Washington has said that you're a citizen or not. And if we allow them to get rid of our humanity, if we allow them to get rid of the humanity of people who have committed a crime and came into this country illegally, but they still get due process, and it still needs to be proportional. And it is not just the the act of coming into the country illegally does not make them a rapist and a murderer. I mean, there are rapists and murderers who came in as well. But even they get due process to make sure we got the right people. And when you throw that stuff out the window and you throw the humanity of people out the window, that is an incredibly dangerous thing. And I've seen that with this Trump administration, whether you're talking about ICE or whether you're talking about Venezuela and the machine gunning of people in the water who are shipwrecked. I'm disgusted with this country. And I don't want to have, like you're talking about, I want to stay 1,000 miles away from that. I want to disassociate myself from that. And I want Americans to disassociate themselves from that. It bothers me when I see people cheering it and saying, I voted for this.
Well, I think even with a false flag, the prices of things and the economic consequences will override that. I think people will get tired on it a long enough time. I think they're going to get tired of it real soon, by the way. This is not going away, and you're about to see the midterms and everything else. I don't think this is going to be popular. And perhaps the Trump administration knew this already, and they're just doing it because they're acting on behalf of a foreign nation. There's no upside for them here in the short run or the long run. I don't know if there's any other way to explain it, but unfortunately, we're tied to this, and we're along for the ride. So, in my estimation, to looking at from what I do in the precious metals business is. There's probably never been a better time to get out of the system and into something that is yours without counterparty risk. Not to do an infomercial, but that's
well, I agree with that.
It's a good time to do that.
And I look at this, and it's the same kind of stuff that when Trump pumped and dumped crypto, right? I was saying at the time, I said it's on sale. Get your gold and silver, right? And so I see this as another one with them manipulating the market to try to keep it from spiking really huge with both gold and oil. Now is the time to try to protect yourself. And, there are some measures that you can do to protect yourself and your family. And from a financial standpoint, I don't think you can do better in terms of protection than gold. Nothing is perfect and nothing's going to go straight up and to the right always, but it is, it's averaging that out over a period of time and just trying to stick with what is real. I think that's the most important thing. Well, Tony, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about what's going on at Wise Wolf?
Well, I'm going to be traveling next week, so I won't be able to do the show, but and I always love coming on and talking to you. It's it seems like every time there's just we're experiencing some new fresher totalitarian tiptoe of something into the dystopia. So
you live in interesting times, right?
I'll miss next week because I'm going to be traveling, and I'm working on a new podcast episode, so I'll be out of my normal jurisdiction. But yeah, just we're doing everything we can. The crew is great, and I'm sourcing as much product as I can. I put out an email about a week or so ago, just letting people know, like, we're trying to get some of the smaller silver items. I've ordered stuff. We had some stuff lost in the mail. There's always something going on with this business, but we're excited about some of the cool stuff coming out in Wolfpack. So appreciate everybody who's stuck with us.
Well, that's great. You're talking about a podcast episode. Do you have a podcast episode today after this show?
I do. I'm going to do the Arterburn Radio transmission once a week on Thursdays, 11 a.m. Central Time. Go find me on at Tony Arterburn on X and America Unplugged channel over on Rumble. We'll be live here in about 40 minutes.
Right after this show. Well, thank you very much, Tony. Again, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, and you can get to Tony through davidknight.gold and let him know that you're coming through us. Thank you so much, Tony. We'll talk to you then in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot. All right. Bye-bye.
making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
I love every act of war that can occur upon this earth.
And so does Lindsey Graham. We should change the voice to that of Lindsey Graham. Give him, instead of a German accent, give him a South Carolina accent. Well,
I love sieges. I love charges.
Well, everybody is talking about Lindsey Graham, and not in a good way either. You got even Megyn Kelly coming out and saying, when did he become our president? Well, you know, he has run for president in the past. That's a scary thing, isn't it? He threatened 4 countries in 24 hours. And he goes on Fox News, and he's got a little hat for every one of his wars that he wants to have with every one of these countries, you know. Trump is out there threatening countries economically. He's threatening to kill people. Absolutely insane. And, of course, you know, he's doing a lot of this for Israel. We got a rabbi who's claiming that the Messiah is coming this year. He's about 2,026 years too late, I think.
You're a bit late, bud.
Yeah, he says the war against Iran that Trump is prosecuting alongside Israel didn't begin as a Pentagon Situation Room, according to Rabbi Kessin, one of the most original, incisive Torah thinkers alive today. What the world is witnessing right now was written thousands of years ago as prophecy. You see, they got nuts like that on their side as well. We got all these Christian Zionists, but they've got Jewish Zionists as well who are pushing this apocalyptic video. And of course, you got people like Donald Trump, who is more than happy to jump into that kind of insanity. As a matter of fact, it might be one of the reasons why you got Lindsey said this about what the world thinks of Trump, Bibi, and the Ayatollah.
You used to be this way. If you polled Europe, who's worse for the world, Trump, Bibi, or the Ayatollah would finish third. This hatred of Israel and Trump is insane and dangerous.
Why do you think that is, Lindsey? I'm with Israel. And of course, the way he pronounces it, he doesn't ever say Israel. He says Israel, or R-I-L. He said, going to send your sons and daughters to die in the Middle East. I'm going back to South Carolina to tell people they need to get into the fight. Of course, he's not going to do it himself. You're not going to see the Trump boys get involved in this. And as a matter of fact, it was J.D. Vance who was pledging to people, hey, if you are of draft age or something, you need to vote for Trump because you don't want to go to war, right?
Honest guidance to those young men, and I think their concerns are very legitimate. But if you're worried about the world spinning out of control, if you're worried about a military draft, if you're worried about, God forbid, a world war, the best way to prevent it is to vote for Donald Trump. And I really believe that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Trump has gone down in people's esteem, lower than the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah may be crazy, but he didn't attack us, so we attacked them. So you got Lindsey Graham talking about sending your sons and daughters to go die in a war. This is from the New American. They said, this is an interview he had with Sean Hannity. And it followed a report from the Wall Street Journal that Graham went to Israel several times, he said, recently to coach Prime Minister Netanyahu on how to push Trump to start a war with Iran. Think about that. As I said before, he's like Jonathan Pollard. He's a traitor to this country. He truly is a traitor. And then declaring that if you are not with Israel, as he puts it, then you're an anti-Semite. I think he mispronounced that as well. You're obviously a racist if you just want to have peaceful trade with people and leave people alone like George Washington. You know, George Washington was anti-Semitic, you know, right? Because he didn't want to go to war for companies. He didn't want to go to war for foreign alliances and that type of thing. As frightening as Graham's comments to Hannity are, perhaps more disturbing is what the Wall Street Journal disclosed about his recent junkets to Israel. During an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Graham called military advisors who opposed bombing Iran the non-entanglement crowd. I'll accept that label, yeah. We don't want foreign entanglements. Maybe you might call us the pro-George crowd. I'm not saying pro-Washington because I despise that place. Betting on Trump's second term, he said, was worth it for the president's military interventions alone. I love war. Lindsey Graham. He says, second-term Trump has different instincts than first-term Trump. Yeah, he said, I agree with it. He does stink a lot more than he did the first term already. Other Republican presidents, he said, would not have green-lighted the Iran operation either, he said. Something that he keeps reminding Trump of. He said Trump, with U.S. forces having captured Venezuelan Maduro, is now more inclined to undertake further interventions. Yeah, he was puffed up with pride. That was very dangerous, how easy that was for them to do. And again, he thought he could just go in and out. I can go in and decapitate their gun. They're all going to be running around, won't know what to do, and all those people in the streets are going to rise up. It's like, you didn't count on what happens when you kill 160 children, when you start bombing civilians. Then at that point, people see you as a greater enemy than the Ayatollah with his secret police or the Shah, right? He said, people don't understand how much more confident Trump is, said Graham. Again, emboldened by committing crimes and getting away with those crimes. I remember the statement Winston Churchill said. He said there was nothing more exhilarating than being shot at without result. And that's basically what exhilarated Trump and accelerated him as well. Accelerated him into channeling Adolf. Graham traveled several times to Israel in recent weeks, he said. They'll tell me things our government won't tell me. And he said he spoke with Netanyahu, coaching him on how to lobby the president for action. Netanyahu showed the president intelligence that persuaded Trump to go ahead. In other words, I imagine he goes in and goes, yeah, we pull the wool over his eyes with these two smart people, Fauci and Birx, about the fake pandemic. So, yeah, just show him a bunch of, made-up charts or whatever. Maybe pull out that chart with the Acme bomb on it from Roadrunner and Coyote. Show him that. Tell him how close they are to a nuclear bomb. And so he says he visits them bi-weekly. I guess to pick up his paycheck, right? I mean, they paid him $4.6 million, AIPAC has. Who knows how much money he's getting from Mossad on the side? I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we are going as a nation. Because we're going to war, right? He always feels good about going to war. We're killing all the right people, he said. And we're cutting your taxes. No. As a matter of fact, Eric Peters on his site, as he's got like every other day he's putting something up about a comment about the state of the war. And he puts it up with a date and he calls it war taxes. Because war is expensive. You're not going to be cutting our taxes. You're going to be raising the debt, which is going to be paid for in taxes. He said, this is my favorite president. We run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II. I love Israel, he said. Yeah, you like bombs and you like attacking countries, you're going to love Israel. He should move there. During his interview with fellow chicken hawk Hannity, says New American, a booster of war in which he has never and will never fight. Graham declared that the fight against Iran is a fight against Adolf Hitler. No, it's against the people who fought Hitler and then became Hitler. Donald Trump, he said, save us literally in the nick of time. If we'd waited another year, they would have had 11 nuclear bombs and they would use them. I believe with all my heart and soul, if the regime in Iran still stands and this is over, we have made a mistake. Well, guess what? It is going to be standing when it's all over. You're not going to overthrow Iran just like you didn't overthrow Iraq or Afghanistan. You've had one failure after the other. Have we learned a lesson? No. I think Iran did learn a lesson about us, but we didn't learn a lesson about ourselves. We're led by people like Hegseth who are too proud, too full of hubris to actually look at themselves in the mirror. They don't like seeing themselves in the mirror or in photographs. He's not like the guy who looks in the mirror and then walks away and forgets what he looks like. No, he doesn't even want to do an inspection of what he is doing, of his character or anything else like that. He said, so this is going to be another one of these Pyrrhic victories. If it is, I don't know what kind of a victory they're going to try to get out of this, but it's going to backfire on them if they're if their idea is that they're going to do regime change. Aside from professing his own loyalty to Israel, writes the New American, Graham expects Americans to send their kids to die in the Middle East. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and their daughters to Middle East. Known as Lady G in LGBT circles, Graham is a childless bachelor, a homosexual. He served in the Air Force as a lawyer and as a judge. He's one of a triumvirate of Republicans like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee, whose principal loyalty is to Israel. And it's based on an unfortunate interpretation of the Bible. I would say a misinterpretation of the Bible. And it is based on political idolatry. And it is based on politics and current events over Christ. That really is what it's about. Not even the Orthodox Jews get into this, like the Zionists do. Christian Zionists, Jewish Zionists, but the Orthodox Jews look at it and they say, well, God's made some promises. We'll trust him to, if we understand his promises, we'll trust him to deliver it miraculously if necessary. But we're not going to try to make it happen on our own. You know why there are Arab nations? Because Abraham, nobody's perfect, right? Abraham made the mistake of thinking that, God had given him a promise. And it's like, well, I don't see God fulfilling his side of the promise. And so he and Sarah decided that he would have a child with her maid. And that's how you get Ishmael. For the longest time, you could see in Western civilization, in the British and American, they would refer to Muslims as the Ishmaelites, right? Or they would talk about them being the Mohammedans or something like that. Long before they talked about Islamic this or that, they were always Ishmaelites. The very existence of the Arab nations is a testimony to the fact that you can misinterpret God's promises, and you can take things into your own hands to try to make these things happen. And you can create a world of problems. And that's basically, we can see that in the nation state of Israel as well, the political state, taking this stuff into their own hands, becoming terrorists, becoming aggressors, becoming like the Germans that they fought. Graham put it in August, he said, if America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull a plug on us. No, actually, it's just the opposite. God will pull the plug on homosexuals like Miss Lindsay. So Huckabee said, the entire Middle East, from the Euphrates River to the Nile, be fine if the Israelites took it all. And this is one of the reasons why the entire world is set against us. Because, again, you have a promise from God. The means that you first of all, you don't need to fulfill God's promises for him. Secondly, the end does not justify the means. And even people who don't even acknowledge the existence of God have a moral understanding about that. That's why there's so much pushback against the state of Israel. And their response is to censor everything, to censor speech, to censor protest, to accuse people of being racist. And so Lindsey Graham says, I'll be with Israel till our dying days. That's exactly what he says. Who knows how long that's going to be.
The anti-Seminites, to all the isolationists. I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus.
What a childish idiot he is. He doesn't even know how to pronounce the name Israel. And he doesn't know what anti-Semite is. He doesn't know how to pronounce that either. He calls it anti-seminarian or something, right? I guess I could say, since I'm against this theology, that I think they got it wrong, and it's taught at most of the seminaries now in America. I guess I could say I'm an anti-seminarian. Not an anti-Semite, but I'm an anti-seminarian. Be careful what you when you trust these people. Do your own investigation. And so I think maybe we should start calling Lindsay. We should give him a new nickname. So I looked it up. I thought, is there some Hebrew word for that sounds like Lindsey that I could use with this? And it turns out there is one. I could call him Lanoy Graham. Lanoy is Hebrew, which basically says, "You are mine." They own him, lock, stock, and barrel. And we know the price tag as well. Somebody needs to embroider that on his leather jacket. $4.6 million. That's the price tag of Lindsey Graham. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Using free speech to free minds. It's the David Knight Show.
If you like the Eagles,
On a dark desert highway,
the Cars, and Huey Lewis and the News,
they say the harder rock and roll is forbidden.
you'll love the Classic Hits channel at APS Radio. Download our app or listen now at apsradio.com.
Well, welcome back. I want to thank people who have supported us through Cash App. I talked about the people on sale a couple of days ago, but I didn't get to the Cash App people. And let me thank them. You know, we put our show up. We don't have a firewall for it. We do have places where you can get the show without commercials. If you are a Subscribe Star supporter, we post that up without commercials each day, the audio version of it. And we have also done that on Substack as well. And one of the reasons we did that was because putting up the platform that we put it up on, that had a monetization thing, and it was pretty good when we first started. It wasn't obsessive. And then I didn't notice it for a while, but they started adding tons and tons of commercials to it. And they just got too greedy, and it really started hurting our viewership there. And so we finally got this set over so that, you know, for just $5 a month, you can get it without any commercials in it. But it did get excessive. And so for a while, I was going through and pulling out the commercials and trying to find the spots where we had breaks and put some commercials in there. But it just got to be too much time to do that. So we decided to be better if we set this up and let people get it commercial free for just $5 a month. And so we do that. That's the starting point at subscriptions at Subscribestar, and you can do that on Substack as well. And that winds up giving us more money than we get from all the commercials that are there anyway. Most of the commercial money goes to the host that is there, and they don't need any more. I mean, they charge us a lot for posting and distributing the stuff every year, so I think they make enough money as it is. But of course, they're always looking for more money. But anyway, I appreciate the fact that we have people who voluntarily have supported the program, and that's where the bulk of our support comes from. So let me thank the people on Cash App. And again, If you want to know how you can find the program, we have that at davidknight.news. And if you'd like to know how you can support the program, that is also there as well. So on Cash App, thank you to George W., to Dave W., to Todd H., Gianna M., William T., and Dave W. Thank you so much. These are supporters for this month on Cash App so far. And right now we are at 1/8 on the gas gauge. Pretty low, but we're doing better than the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I should say, but actually, no, they're up. Their gas gauge is now, with the latest release that they're doing, their gas gauge is at 33%. So they've only got 33% after they release this next amount that they're about to release of their gas tank. So we'll see how that works. Meanwhile, let's talk about the egonomics, because that's really what this is about.
Real quick, I want to remind people that we do have some companies that support the show.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we support them.
Yes.
And on sale at homesteadproducts.shop right now is their organic passion flower tea. It's a serene blend, is how they describe it. Say it's ideal for relaxation and stress reduction. They do their best to make sure, not their best, they make sure that it's all hand-picked and hand-packed. There's no chemicals or anything on it. It's a high-quality tea, and they say it's great for bedtime. Maybe that's what I need.
Yeah, that's what I need too. Yeah, definitely.
There's not much rest going on here, folks.
No. Not much sleeping going on either.
It's on sale right now at homesteadproducts.shop, and you can go there and see it and pick some up, and they support the program, and we really are thankful for them. They work very, very hard to make sure their products are all high quality and made in America. So go check out homesteadproducts.shop, and on sale, their organic passion flower tea.
Yes. Somebody asked me a day or two ago, what kind of stuff, where should I get storable food? It's like, take a look at what they've got. They got a lot of freeze-dried stuff that's really high quality. And, it's not a bunch of starch and, things like that. And you can support like-minded people who are also out there trying to make a living. And they've got some great quality stuff. Tastes great, great nutrition, and it's freeze-dried and it's going to last a long time as well. Well, let's take a look at the egonomics, the ego of Trump. This is an ex-Goldman commodity guy, and he was running the commodity branch of investments for Goldman Sachs. He said, no policy response can meaningfully reverse oil prices in the near term, he said. So whatever happens with the Strait of Hormuz, it's not going to make much difference. And then the long term, Trump wants to cut and run at this point in time because they don't want to get a long, drawn-out thing. They want to declare victory and say they've achieved their goals, but they haven't. And if they want to do a regime change, then he will get us drawn into a quagmire of quicksand. But the bottom line is that the Iranians want to keep us there. The longer they keep us there, the more painful this becomes for the politicians who initiated this act of aggression. He said the system simply cannot accommodate such a shock, leading to extreme hoarding, upward price pressure, and potential inflation spillovers. Yeah, we saw how this all worked with the OPEC oil embargo and the drag and the stagflation, as Gerald Celente has been talking about this for quite some time. He said this will be dragflation. And he was saying that even before the trigger became this insanely stupid Middle East war. He was saying just based on all the quantitative easing, the easy money, and the low interest rates, and the other things that the government had already done, he was predicting dragflation. But when we go back and then add to it essentially an OPEC oil embargo to kick this whole thing off as a trigger, it's going to be very severe, I think. He says, going back to the Goldman guy in terms of oil, he said, no effective policy response from governments, from any Strategic Petroleum Reserve release, or from any other interventions can halt or meaningfully reverse the upward trajectory of oil prices, which the Strait of Hormuz has disrupted and remains blocked. He said risks to global energy supply chains are at unprecedented highs. Market optimism versus reality. He said financial markets appear to be wildly optimistic, betting against prolonged disruption. And we saw this. What did it take? It took a fake tweet from the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright. He said, yeah, we're now escorting, our Navy's now escorting people through the Strait of Hormuz. And boom, the oil prices dropped like 10%. The WTI as well as the Brent crude. And it was all based on a lie. But even after people said, I don't see that happening, and after the Trump administration admitted that that was wrong and had him take that tweet down, then they still went down that path. I mean, they're wildly optimistic, as he pointed out. They're completely detached from reality. They want to believe what they want to believe. He also emphasized the revenge of the old economy theme. He said, when you look at hard assets, particularly energy, things like oil and natural gas and metals, whether it's copper and base or precious metals like gold and silver, agriculture, other real physical commodities, they are entering or reasserting a commodity supercycle driven by things like chronic underinvestment in traditional supply chains. Oil and metals have been substantially underinvested for years, he said. And then there's structural demand shifts of AI data centers and energy needs. I mean, we got this massive new energy consumer coming online with the AI data centers. And, that's the reality of it. I don't like the AI data centers, but that's the reality of it, what they're going to do with it. Capital rotation from tech into financial assets into things that are real. He said we're going to see that. Hoarding and strategic stockpiling by nations like China and India, amplifying the upside in physical commodities. And then geopolitical security factors overriding efficiency. Just in case stockpiling, which is what we've had, versus just in time, which is what we've had just in time. But now they're going to start stockpiling more in terms of just in case. So this chaos that's been released is getting everybody paranoid. And so people are going to start hoarding stuff, as they always do with an emergency, even if it's a man-made problem like this. He said the tangible old economy, physical companies and sectors are going to start on the rise again. He said, amid geopolitical shocks like disruptions to the Strait of Hormuz, every major inflection point over the past 50 years has triggered a capital rotation from asset-light sectors like tech, which is now 53% of the Standard & Poor's, to asset-heavy sectors. He said they wrongly priced energy as declining, and they priced tech as perpetual. So he said commodities, energies, metals, and mining and infrastructure, things like pipelines, railroads, utilities, other real assets are what people are going to start looking for right now. Once the bombs start flying, things start to get real. So oil prices jump, stocks dump as 2 oil tankers explode in Persian Gulf. This is what happened yesterday. And then Hezbollah hit Israel with the largest missile attack of the war. I guess that was an answer to the boasting of War Pete saying, oh, you just wait, on Wednesday, or Tuesday, whatever the day was, because they have their time frame is so much different. He said, we're going to have the biggest barrage you've ever seen. And so what happened was the allies of Iran, Hezbollah, and Lebanon unleashed their biggest barrage in answer to that. And so probably both sides were unleashing the biggest number of death from the sky. So we were told that Iran was out of missiles, and yet they had the biggest barrage yet. Largest wave of missiles since the hostilities began. That was launched into northern Israel by Hezbollah. And so War Pete was boasting about the biggest day of the war on his side was coming. Then it turned out that I guess it was incoming. He actually misspoke, I guess. Kind of like Lindsey Graham. President of Iran has demanded reparations and guarantees against future aggression. Trump says the war with Iran will end soon. As he said, there's practically nothing left to target. Yet U.S. and Israeli officials plan at least 2 more weeks of strikes. Even though he says we've destroyed everything, they're still going to do it for another 2 or 3 weeks, right? I mean, that's if you go with their initial time frame, which is 4 to 5 weeks, they said. Then Pete Hegseth said doubled that. I don't know, 8 to 10 weeks. I don't know. And then somebody said they were told by a source inside the Trump administration they've been told to plan for September. What is it? We don't know, because we still can't get an answer from them as to what their objective is, other than it's vaguely defined. We want to make sure they don't ever produce nuclear weapons, and we want to change the regime. And it's like, those are both fool's errands, right? You're jousting at windmills. You can't accomplish either one of those goals.
The way he talks about it, there's nothing left to target, shows a very narrow and myopic view of things as well. A country is not buildings. A country is not statues. The country is the people. And if the Iranian people want to fight, they'll fight. Yeah. You'll have to fight them until there are none left.
That's right. And they have motivated them to fight at this point. As night fell across the Middle East, Hezbollah launched a huge wave of at least 150 rockets on northern Israel, marked the largest Hezbollah attack on Israel since hostilities intensified earlier this month. It was followed by reports that 2 oil tankers have been hit by explosive boats and were on fire in the Persian Gulf. I showed that to you earlier. This is what it looked like there. They said 2 foreign tankers carrying Iraqi fuel oil have been subjected to unidentified attacks within Iraqi territorial water, causing both vessels to catch fire. This is not in the Strait. This is in Iraqi territorial water. Authorities have successfully evacuated 25 crew members from the 2 ships, but the fires have remained ablaze on both vessels. One tanker, which was flying a foreign flag, is believed to be American. The attack took place within Iraq's territorial waters. Just remember that. So perhaps the area is not as safe as Trump said it was, comments Zero Hedge. Meanwhile, oil prices are surging higher. So it's back up above $91. Actually, I checked it this morning. It was $97. It had gotten down into the 80s because of the false information and the irrational exuberance of Wall Street, wanting to believe that the U.S. government knew what it was doing. It jumped 20% higher, says Zero Hedge, than the previous day's lows. Very volatile. Shortly after the spike in crude oil, the Department of Energy sent out the following statement. The United States is going to release 172 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Well, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the U.S. is 714 million barrels. The one that the IEA has, which encompasses European nations, and also you throw in Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan, and the U.S. and Canada, and then the rest of it is European nations. That amounts to 1.2 billion, which again, if it's 32 different countries, that's not a lot of a strategic reserve. But we went into this, we didn't have our gas tank full. It wasn't 714, but it was 414 that we had. Our tank was 58% full when we went into this. And now they're starting to release 172 million barrels. So you take that out, and that gets us down to 242 million. That is about a third of what the capacity is for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And again, the Republicans all say, well, what about Biden? He dumped this stuff out just so he could look good at the pump. It wasn't any emergency. And you're absolutely right. And yet, why didn't Trump, as he was bragging about low oil prices, and he said they were lower than they really were, why didn't he fill it up when he had the chance? And if he's going to start a war, why didn't he fill it up? Again, this is all based on this fantasy that they had sold themselves, that it's going to be in and out. It's going to be quick, just like Venezuela. So the president of Iran said the only way to end this war is to recognize Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression. So Hegseth said, we saw the most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes of the war yet. And the result of that was to send the price of everything higher, as this guy, this idiot, revels in carnage. Who knew? So Trump says the U.S. took out just about all of Iran's mine ships, and then oil reversed its lower position. Then Trump says oil companies should use the Strait of Hormuz. It extends the drop. Then Trump promises great safety for oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Further drop. Then at some point, we realized that all that stuff he was saying and his administration was saying, it's just lies. And it jumps by 20%. As volatility, all of this is in the lap of Donald Trump. It's what happens when markets realize that Trump always lies. They need to start to factor that in. The most significant development in the Strait of Hormuz on Tuesday was the start of naval mining operations. It was met with massive U.S. firepower that destroyed 16 mine-laying vessels. But the people who are commenting on this say they still have about 80% of their mine-laying vessels, and they don't even need to lay mines in order to make the route impassable. They destroyed these 2 tankers in Iraqi waters with drones. There's a lot of different things that they can use. Since the Houthis have produced drones under bombardment, one would think that the Iranians could also do the same thing, right? So this long-standing war between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia, and the Houthis kept producing these drones even as they were getting shelled by the Saudis who have the expensive weapons that we make. But they kept up production. Ukraine has kept up production. You don't think that Iran can keep up production with this stuff? So that was a research fellow at UK-based Royal United Services Institute. The Wall Street Journal reported that Saudi Arabia's kill-to-cost ratio, neutralizing $20,000 drones from Iran with $2 million plus missiles, has spurred talks with a Ukrainian counter-drone company for cheaper interceptor drones. Yeah, there is a huge... it's not only the fact that these interceptors are a lot more expensive than what they're trying to kill, but you got to use several of them, typically 2 to 3 of them for each of these incoming missiles, because it's a difficult problem to solve. And so War Pete boasted that the most intense phase of U.S. strikes was expected on Wednesday. Tehran responded with retaliatory strikes against Gulf neighbors and the most number of missiles fired into Israel. So Trump and his advisors have miscalculated Iran's response to the war completely. In the lead-up, Trump downplayed the risk to the energy markets of a short-term concern that should not overshadow the mission. They just completely disregarded that. We don't have to worry about the price of oil. We don't have to worry about the Strait of Hormuz. Just set aside the morality as well. But they also set aside the practicality and the planning. And the results are going to be seen. On February the 18th, Trump weighed about whether to launch attacks on Iran. His energy secretary, the same guy that falsely moved the markets worldwide with lies about the Navy escorting people through the Strait of Hormuz, Chris Wright, the energy secretary, told an interviewer that he wasn't concerned with a looming war would disrupt oil supplies in the Middle East and wreak havoc in energy markets. How does this guy have any credibility whatsoever? As a matter of fact, how do these people in the Trump administration who are playing these games, they need to get some more Florsheim shoes that fit. If the shoe fits, they should wear it. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day. Common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. TheDavidKnightShow.com.